Hey there, welcome back to the worst war machine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and this video is going to be how to paint on a treadmill. So with that in mind, let's just kind of get to it. We're going to get this thing started. And so I used to do these things called Pantisodes. And what I would do in these Pantisodes is I would sit there and I would paint for an hour. All right, we got this thing going, and that was all fun and well. I haven't done one of those Pantisodes for a long time, and I've had people asking for them, and ever since the well, this is going to be tough. Ever since the whole pandemic started, I was joking that I should be doing like a pantisode where I'm on the treadmill panting and then trying to paint. So basically what we're going to be doing here is trying to paint a model in an hour, the best we can, and then over that time I had some questions sent in I'll be answering. I'm wondering how much I'm going to fall. I actually go on here every single morning. Literally every morning I go on here for at least an hour, so I'm not going to die, although I've never done this while talking the whole time, so we'll see if I have the breath and lung capacity to be doing both, and I'm already kind of wondering if I can. So, who am I painting today? I'm going to be painting Colby Sterling. Now, the reason why I picked Colby Sterling is because she's awful. If you look at other mechanics and what you can get, she's 3 points for a very crappy D3 plus 1 and some very forgettable abilities, whereas you could just be taking a 2-point Tinker and then it's D6 you're fixing. That means on average you're fixing more for less points and you have cover, so it's pretty good. Breathing's important. I didn't think I was going to have this much of a trouble. Although I haven't fallen off yet, so that's pretty good. The other thing, though, is that I could have gone easy. I could have been like, let's take a silver line or something like that. That's like silver done for the most part. There's enough details on Colby Sterling that it's going to be obvious how good or bad I did. Now, this thing has a cup holders, so I have my water on one side, my brush, and all my paint's over here. So let's get to it. Oh man, I think I was trying to say this before, I usually just zone out. I usually just like throw on some music, throw on a Netflix, something, and I'll just sit here like a zombie for an hour as I slowly work my way through this. I'm going to need both my hands, so here we go. Oh boy. All right, so while we do this, let's get to some of the questions. And unfortunately, I only put this up yesterday. So here we go. I have one here from Justin Moore that says, what are your thoughts on Warcaster? Will you be demoing it and playtesting it? I have zero interest in Warcaster, like at all. Basically, it's a completely different game. What am I going to do with my paint? Yeah, I can put it there. So it's a completely different game. So in order for me to be interested in Warcaster, it has to be a game that, one, is good enough for me to feel is worth the investment. And at this point now, I couldn't tell you. I haven't demoed it, so I don't actually know. But at the same time, the second thing that it has to do is be good enough to replace games or activities I'm already doing. And for it to be better than War Machine, so I'm going to be replacing my War Machine time with it, I really don't see that happening. And then what else? Like, I have my kid time, I have my exercise time. Like, there's really not a lot of spare time that I have. You know, is it better than my board game time, which is then really saying, is it better than all the other board games? So that's the thing. Like, if it was War Machine, then okay, it just needs to be good enough to fit in my War Machine dedicated time, but it's not. It's a completely different game. So because of that, I really don't have any interest in it, because the likelihood of it being something I keep is not very good at all. Oh man, I am how far into this? 5 minutes, and I'm struggling. Oh boy. So yeah, will I demo it? Sure. You know, if I'm somewhere and they're like, hey, Malorian, I got this Warcaster stuff. We have some time before our next game or whatever. Want to play? I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. But honestly, I think if anything, it's just a side game that they're doing to have some interest, like their own interest. Somebody wanted to make this, and so they're giving it a go. All right, so we have the first color done, which is really just the green on the cloak. But again, you know, the goal is not perfection here. And I now see it on my paper towel. The goal here is to make it so it looks painted from across the table. And the thing is too, like, I don't plan to improve this model after it's painted. That's it. And it's always going to have the story that I painted this on a treadmill. So next, let's try and do some skin. That's one of the things I always like, is the colors that make the biggest difference. Obviously a dark green that I use for my mercenaries on a black primed model is not going to show off that much. But things like when you add the skin, that's something you see. And then you start actually like seeing the model for what it is. Oh boy. Is that coat or is that skin? Oh, that's supposed to be coat. I should have painted that. So do we have any? We have gloves and we have face. Okay, this is all for face then. Oh boy. Colby, you're going to end up so ugly. Yeah, there we go. We did it. All right. So, let's go to the next question. Now, I did mention, I think I mentioned, there wasn't a ton of questions. So, Stuart Duncan, you are the shout out and basically the sponsor for this whole video, because you gave me the vast majority of questions. You came on here and you're like, you know what? You want questions? Here's a bajillion. So that's going to be probably what I need to get through this, as I now realize that elbow was coat and not skin. Let's just quickly do this. We'll get to Stuart's first question. What happened that made you realize you'd made the jump from player to good player? Which, of course, the response is bold of you to assume I'm a good player, but good question. So let me just get this down. One thing that's also something you might be wondering about is that I have said before that I have asthma. And so this used to always be a big thing where, oh yeah, my brown's running low. This used to be a big thing where in high school, if I did sports or something, I would just be collapsing after, just because I can't breathe. I'd be wheezing, stuff like that. And so since then, I didn't do many sports. I stopped, very quickly in university. Didn't do soccer anymore, didn't do hockey. Just kind of tired of the asthma attacks. Now, when I started doing this, like, I don't know how many months ago, every single day, I was wondering, would I have asthma attacks again? And so far, not. There was one day I was close, And I think today we're going to try to test it again because, again, normally my breaths are for breathing, and today my breaths are for talking, which means I'm not getting as much air into my lungs. So I apologize that sometimes I have to do this to actually breathe. But the other warning is if I do start wheezing and I realize I have an asthma attack coming, I'm going to cut this thing short. But we're going to make it. We'll be fine. All right, so we were talking about good players. Now, that's a very open-ended question that could go a lot of different ways. Yeah. And I think you have to define good. And I think most people, what they define as good is just to the point where you have a pretty solid mastery of the rules. You're probably now winning some games. And it's one of those things that you might not be winning tournaments, but you're winning tournament games. Oh boy, this is tough. Now, to get to that, what do you have to do? Well, first thing you have to do is you have to spend that time. You have to dedicate that time. Oh, here comes the sweat down my head now. I wonder how, the sweat's going to be affecting my models. It's going to get to the point where I'm going to try painting something, and it's not going to go on well, simply because it's covered in sweat. So you have to spend that time, and that's tough. A lot of new players, they're like, oh, it's fine. I'll just jump in there. I'll maybe learn the core stuff. They played a battle box, and they're like, okay, I know how that works. That's not enough. The starter battle box is just the corest of rules, and you have to know a lot more to be competitive. So you literally have to spend that time cranking out games and trying to master that. So once you do that, the next thing you have to do is you actually just have to play games. And the reason why is that sometimes the only way to really, really learn is to be smacked. So, you might realize that Sloan shoot lot, but until you play Sloan, lose that game because you just got shot off the table, you don't really understand what that really means and why you might, if you have a Sloan player in your area, need a Sloan dedicated list. After that, it actually comes pretty quickly. The next thing is just mastery over your own list. And I mean, that's again, while you're doing your other games and things, that's just going to come, right? Oh boy, what am I doing? Let's put this on there. Oh boy. Colby, I'm so sorry, but this wouldn't be happening to you if you were better. So this is what we're looking like now. Not pretty, but if you saw this from across the board, it's getting there. It's getting there. So I think that's really it. To say what's going to get you as a good player, that's what you have to do. And you have to realize that probably means 2 years. That's the hardest thing of War Machine, is that you have to, as a new player, come in and realize it's going to take you 2 years of time where you're trying to read and learn the rules, taking your licks, really learning how these things actually work, giving that time to learn your own stuff, and then you're going to start winning games, then you're going to start finding success. And it's tough, if you're a very competitive player, learning that you have to be losing over and over for that many games, they're like, no, why would I not go to 40K and play something where I can have success immediately? All right, let's get some black boots. All the cool ladies have black boots. Oh, so there's the answer to that question. Like I said, Stuart had a bunch, as I now had to struggle holding my paint, entering my password in my phone. Why your factions? So, I actually have only 2 factions right now. Oh boy, there's the first blotch of black all over her cape. I only have 2 factions right now. Mercenaries and Signar. And I used to have a lot more. Ooh, that's going to be armor. There's also really bad lighting in this corner, which is maybe good because it gives me a better excuse. Why is that painting so bad? Well, you know, bad lighting and stuff. But I used to have Gators, I used to have Circle, I had Kador, I had Menoth, I had, what else? I swear I must have had something else. Can't think of it though. But really, going into Mark III, I was like, well, I can't do all of these things because there's too many new models coming out. I couldn't keep up with everything and be competitive, and plus the financial side of it. So going into Mark III, I was like, okay, 2 factions. And if you want to do 2 factions, the best thing to do is find that crossover. And Signar and Mercenaries are a great one because Mercnar is the thing, and all those mercenaries can work in Signar, sometimes reverse as well for some of the themes. And yeah, it just made sense. So I think from a rules decision, it was good. It was also aesthetic reasons. I really like my mercenaries. I like the look of them. I like the feel of them. There seems to be so many different ways you can go with mercenaries. Unfortunately, at the time, that was also because the old irregulars existed. That was basically take whatever you want. Here's your free theme stuff. Now you actually have to go into real themes, cry tier. And then Signar, same thing. I just like those, like, even though you read the fluff, they're actually the bad guys. If you look at them, a lot of people coming in think they're like, oh yeah, they're the good guys. They're not, but you know, they're kind of look-wise the classic good guys, and I can pretend that's what they are too. Plus, whenever I train people, new players, I like doing the Striker versus Magnus battle box because there's a story there. I can say, yeah, this one worked for the old king, this one's loyal to the new king, this is why their stuff looks similar, stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's 2 interesting boxes to go against each other too, and kind of gets them into the story. All right, next question as I go to the next color. What is your favorite model in the War Machine range in terms of sculpt? Ooh, I didn't read these beforehand, and that's one that might take some thought. What is my favorite model in terms of sculpt? I think the Archons are really up there, especially the Morrowind. I love the look of the Morrowind Archon. I would like the Thamrite better, but its tube sock head always makes me laugh. So Morrowind's up there. Some of you might have seen, for Zal 2, Doug did an alternate sculpt. If you haven't seen this yet, look it up. It is amazing. So that's a great one. Archangel, that's obviously up there. That's an amazing sculpt and massive. So I say, if anything, those are my top 3. And if I had to say which is my favorite, it's probably that alternate Zal 2. That's actually, you know, we all know how I am not a fan of Scorn, but that was a model that when it came out, it's like, do I have to own Scorn now? Because I like that so much. All right, Colby, we are going to try and give you hair. It's going to go horrible, but you're just going to have to deal with it. All right. Now, one of the things that might also be something I should comment on is that according to the fluff in the pictures, Colby Sterling is supposed to not be Caucasian with yellow hair. And when I was, of course, in this time of reflection and upheaval, it's one of those things that I was looking at myself for how racist is Malorian. And it's like, you know what? That's one thing where I'm probably not the best, because for me, no matter what my models are supposed to be, they're basically all Caucasian. I always, like my Siege, he has white skin type thing, right? And, it's not a thing where I'm doing it specifically because I don't like the look of dark skin or anything like that. It's a combination of, I want my models to have a unifying theme. I want them to look the same together. And I noticed that when I first tried painting one with darker skin, the browns I used blended in with the browns I usually use in the model, because I usually do a lot of browns for the leather and stuff in my mercenaries. And I found that blended in. So that's my reasoning. But reasoning aside, that's something that has to be, right? So this is a little aside. One of those things where it's always good to self-analyze and always wonder, where are my weaknesses? And then determining if you think it's a weakness that you need to take action on. Years ago, back in my fantasy days, I actually made an Ogre Kingdoms list that were supposed to be all African ogres. So they all had dark skin. They had, tiger print pants and stuff like that. And I felt that that was actually worse. That when I tried doing it, it was too stereotypical. And maybe I was stereotyping too much is probably the better way to say that. And so really, I looked at it and I was like, no, that's probably more insulting, me trying to force this in, as opposed to me just painting them all the same way. So just a quick aside, let's move on. By the way, where are we with our model? It's looking like this. So it's coming together, starting to look like it. I have to do the quick dark brown of the gun, and then we're going to be on to some silver. And I think it's going to start coming together pretty quick. And we're about not even really halfway in, so we're doing actually pretty good. So the next question is, are Archons overpowered, as they're now in almost every list? So a couple of things there. One, they're not in every list anymore. So I think when they first came out, I would start my list with 2 Morrowind Archons, 2 Thamrite Archons, and that's where I'd start from. However, as everyone kept on playing around with it, they're not always the best thing. First of all, you have some factions out there that can't get them, so they don't. But there's just a lot of lists where those 8 points could be something else, and they just don't fit in with the list and what's trying to do and what is trying to beat out there. So if we have a bunch of hard-hitting infantry that is hitting at a high mat and a high POW, those are designed to destroy Archons. And of course, people are designing their lists to beat Archons. So as the meta changes, they just don't fit, and they're falling their way out. So if you look at them and say, as a simple comparison, Archons are usually 8 points. Solos are your basic solo, usually 4 points. Is an Archon better than 2 solos? And the answer is usually yes. 2 basic 4-point solos, I would always take an Archon as opposed to 2 of those solos, so broken. However, those other solos are usually doing their work from the back, something safe. They're going to always be giving it their benefits turn after turn, whereas a Morrowind Archon has to be up there. It has to put its neck on the line. Even things like the Thamrite, it has to be up there. Unless you have a way of getting dodge or something, Once you go up there to shoot, you're up there, and you might lose it now. So I feel if it is above and it probably is leading there. We did our episode saying that they're, based on their stats, their points would be more like 10 points. But that all said, the meta corrects for itself. We're in a living game with new rules coming out, new things coming on top, people trying to counter the top lists. And as people are countering those better lists, it self-adjusts, right? So, for example, we talked about before about Sloan and how Sloan will just blow you off the table. That's overpowered. However, people know about Sloan, and what they'll do is they will take things that shut down shooting, or terrain will be used by organizers to shut down shooting. And so between these two things, that keeps it in check. Between the organizers themselves, making sure that the table is set up to be fair. Like when Circle's exploding, they were like, very careful, where am I putting my force on the board? When shooting's exploding, okay, let's really make sure we have some line of sight blocking stuff. And then the players themselves, taking shield guards, taking lots of models. Menoth taking things like choir, right? So that you can't shoot it. And then that balances it. All right. I've been doing too much talking, not enough painting. So let's try and get this dark brown for the wood, for the gun going. I don't know if we'll even be able to see it very well. And odds are I'm going to get this all over her glove anyway. But let's give it a try. Okay, that didn't go so horribly. Oh boy. Now, is there any other wooden stuff while I'm here? No. There we go. Another color down. One of the things, if I was wondering if I should stress during this, is I've had a lot of people saying, I can't do X because of time. I can't paint models. I can't play games. I can't make content because of time. And you know what? If you are creative with your time, you will always find a way. One of the things I said was War Table. Get on there, play War Table. And somebody was saying, well, if I did that, I don't have my time to paint. Well, paint while you're playing War Table, right? That's probably one of the perfect times where you're sitting down at a table, click on your turn, and if it's not your turn, if you're thinking, paint, right? You can mix those two things together. If you're looking at a game that might take 2 hours, so you probably have an hour in there that's not your turn. That's what we're doing right here. So I think if you need to, you can fit things in. Obviously, that's something I've had to really deal with. Me trying to make content when I have, a job, a life, 3 kids, trying to do other things at the same time. So I've had to be creative where I get in my content creation time. Like now, every morning I wake up early, come down to do my exercising. And I was like, if I did this Pantisode, I'm getting content and this and painting. Wow, we get it all at once. All right, now we're going to do one that's probably going to be awful. Oh yeah, my silver is low too. Because I'm going to be doing the metal stuff. And silver really shows when it's not in the right spot. So if I get the face or the hair, it's going to be really obvious. So we'll see how bad this turns out. Meanwhile, Stuart's next question is, what's your number one tip to a novice or a new tournament player? Well, we already talked about the other stuff about how to make you a good player. But I would say that my number one tip, and War Room can really teach you this, is to think about the game in bubbles, where every model threats this amount. And if you think of the game in bubbles around every single model and their potential threat range, you stop foolishly running models into threat range, right? That's where you start asking questions. How far does that threat? How far does it charge? How far does it shoot? and then you're setting yourself up. That's also where you start realizing the peace trade reality, where if you walk into this not thinking about that, you're like, yeah, we're going to battle, and I'm going to punch you, and I'm going to take you out. And then you realize, oh, I threat 10 inches, you threat 14, you're going to get the alpha. Meaning, one of two things. One, I have to eat your alpha and be strong enough to hit you back and equalize that trade or get ahead. Or I need to use something, my pawns in front of me, to take the first hit so I can charge in after and actually peace trade. And in fact, maybe along with that, just playing chess. The idea of what's in threat, how to peace trade, that's really huge. You can really tell the players that come in and they've never played chess because they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to run up here with all my best stuff. I'm like, well, you realize I'm just going to kill it, right? Oh, no. And then you kill it, and they're like, oh, man, you got lucky. No, that's just the math. You moved into a spot where I could attack you. If you did some math, you'd know that odds are I'll kill you. And maybe next time, don't do that. So yeah, knowing how to peace trade, knowing how to math, seeing the table in bubbles, so you're understanding what's threatening what. Ay. Come on. Trying to get this big wrench and knowing that I'm one stumble from just smearing that silver everywhere. There's also increasing amounts of sweat rolling into my eyes, which, as you can guess, is not helping. Is that wrench going behind? Oh boy, this is going to be the bad spot. That's not so bad. We got it. She has a wrench. Now to get her a gun. Is your hair dry? Yeah. We got this. This is easy. Oh man. Even when you're an experienced good player, you're still going to make mistakes in that peace trade though. So just to be honest about that, I played a game recently where, oh boy, it happened. I was trying to paint by the hair. I stumbled. It got all over the hair. That's a lot of silver hair you got there, Colby. But I was playing a war table game, and I had not played against Melvin and Mayhem yet. And I did not realize how deadly they were. I followed my own advice. I asked the threat range, and I put pieces in the way, but I didn't realize it's not just threat range. There's other things like he could put on elasticity and ghostly and charge right over my lines and still get to my caster. And so that's one of those things where I was saying, you have to know the rules, and then you have to be punched in the face enough so that you can actually learn from it. So we have a gun, we have a wrench, we also got silver hair. So we're at the point in the video where I'm trying to touch up my previous mistakes. Oh boy. I am thinking though, we're going to be done this model well before an hour, which is super fine with. And this is where I probably get on the gun. You're fine. You look beautiful, Colby. Best model ever. All right. What's our next question? As it went off that page. And if I was remembering these, I could be talking about them as I go. Come on. I should have loaded them up on the computer, but I thought, oh, it's going to ding at me. I don't want to have that. Here we are. So Stuart's last question was, oh my God, everything is harder on the treadmill. Why did I, oh my God, I keep on scrolling too far and then it closes it. You're killing me, you're killing me. Okay, the new 40K is including a small victory point advantage in competitive play. From what I've seen anyway. How would you feel about that in a steamroller? Some sort of strength of schedule bonus or tie initiative, a free reroll once per game for fully painted. Oh, so it's an advantage for painting. So I can see the advantage of giving a competitive advantage for painting. It's one way to force competitive players to actually paint. Locally, I'm sure lots of places did this, there was a overall score. So this is not War Machine. This is for fantasy in 40K. And so you would get a score based on your wins. You get a score based on your sportsmanship. And you get a score based on your painting. And based on those things, there was 4 trophies at the end of the day. There was best general, best sport, best painted, best overall. And of course, best overall, that was the bigger trophy, that was the bigger prize, blah, blah, blah. So if you're a competitive player trying to go for best overall, you would need to be not a jerk, which is easy. Usually best sport was not really doing what it was intended to, but you have to also paint. And so the intention there, of course, is to try and get everyone painting their things, trying to get everyone getting to a good tabletop level. Well, here's the problem. One, it was already kind of done by the fact that you were, at least here, forced to be painted in order to play in a lot of cases. So you already had that anyway. Although you had the people that just like dipped their models and be like, oh, it's painted, 3 colors, done. But at the same time, what you also had was it was not a personal skill, it was a financial skill. Because if you were that competitive, what would you do? Well, if I'm already spending hundreds of dollars to buy these models, what's a couple extra hundred to get it professionally painted? You know, that's literally buying points. You know, you might not end up being the best painted. However, your painted score will go up. And so, you know, you can't do that for the other ones. I can't pay money and know that I'm going to do better in a tournament. I can't, like, you know, in terms of winning, I can't just pay money and determine my sportsmanship will go up. However, I could literally put in money and up my painting score. And so that would start causing a big issue. It's also an issue, of course, if they actually win, because, you know, if somebody wins best painted, do you say their name? Do you say the initial painter? You know, there's a lot of ifs there, and what do you do about those? So it's one of those things where there's a lot of good intentions, but the devil's in the details, and how those things are going to be working out and panning out is the real issue here. When we were first doing this in War Machine, we were trying to find a way to actually apply it. We were trying to find a way where we can be doing this best overall in War Machine. And the unanimous voice that we heard from the players was like, no, steamrollers are not set up for that type of play. Sure, you could give a score for sportsmanship in one way or another. Sure, you could give a painting score in one way or another. But the way you play the game is not designed that you'd be having different points for winning or losing. You either win or you lose. There's not like a massacre win, a minor win. You could apply these things saying, okay, if you destroy this many points, it's a minor win, this many points, it's a win, and this many points is a massacre. Well, what about scenario? What about death clock, right? Like, How do you mix in these multiple win conditions into these multiple levels of winning? And so even though the people coming from fantasy really were hoping War Machine could fit into that type of a box, it just didn't work. So if we're talking about now, this is what 40K is doing. Can we do this with War Machine steamrollers? The answer is, well, yes, you can literally do whatever you want, and you can have the best intentions in doing so. However, is it going to bring about the change that you actually want? And I think that's the big thing you should always be thinking about these here, is that what are you actually trying to achieve in the end? And then making sure what you're doing is actually going to get you to that. So for example, when I run big events, what I do is I don't force people to be painted. There's some reasons why people would not have painted things, and that's okay. To encourage painting, if you have a fully painted army, you're in for a draw for a prize. Okay, that encourages you to put paint on models, but what encourages you to be the best painted? Well, there's also competition, and best painted also gets a prize. So you can go into the event and you can go to try and win the steamroller like normal, but inside I'm encouraging painted by having a random draw for everyone fully painted, and it's a separate prize for anyone who is the best painted out of everyone. Now I did it for a while, but the last thing I started doing on top of that is that there's been a thing for a while of like a wooden spoon. And the wooden spoon is for whoever comes in last in the tournament. That's been done for a long time. Well, when you're cooking, they have like those like basting brushes for like putting on sauces and steaks and stuff like that. So I started having the wooden brush. And so whoever is the worst painted army or the least painted army will get the wooden brush. So that way, there is a competition for being best painted, encouragement to actually paint your army, and then if you're one of those people who's like, oh, well, I just don't want to bother, maybe you want to put in some so you don't get the shame of the wooden brush. And just to also explain something else, when I do a wooden spoon, that's not just shame, that's encouragement, because my wooden spoons, when you bring them to a future event of mine, you can turn them in and get $5 off your entrance fee. So it says, okay, you did the worst, you're probably a new player, maybe something else happened, but come back and try again. And I found that has worked out great. People, when they come in last, when we first started giving the wooden spoons, it was kind of like, and you start having the people that were just like specifically leaving because they're having a crappy day. They don't want the shame of the wooden spoon, so they just leave early. And that's not what I want. I'm not there to shame people. I want to identify, like, look, you're at the bottom, to encourage you to do better, but I also want to encourage you to stay and come back. And so that's why I changed it. So that's a $5 discount from a future event. All right, we've been doing a lot of talking and zoning out. We have to get back into Colby. Now, where are we? Your gun is done. Your wrench is done. Oh, I didn't get the armor on your knees. I don't have good enough light so I can see what the hell's going on in your chest. I think those are supposed to be like parts. And I also never really decided what I'm doing with that shirt. I didn't really do the shirt. And now I'm worried that if I try and splash color in there, it's going to look like splashed color in there. What would we do with that? Our best. So what we're going to do, and by the way, I didn't follow another advice, is that when you paint like you get dressed in the morning. Whatever is the thing you put on first ends up being underneath. So of course, if you would put on a shirt, put on a coat, and then like put on armor after type thing, if you paint that way, you don't end up in my situation now where I need to paint behind and underneath stuff. So that way you're painting what's in the back and working your way out. So as usual, my advice to you is don't do the stupid things I do. I believe my white is also running low. And if I do a white shirt, that's really going to pop. And I normally say this would be bad. because my mistakes would be really popping out. But you know what? That's kind of what we're supposed to be doing here. So let's go. Try not to slime my model too much. They're going to be like, oh wow, we got a nice glaze on there. Yeah, that's a sweat. Gross. All right, we're going to try and give her a white shirt, which means I'm going to make everything else white. And maybe by putting white on here too, I can maybe start working out what some of these details are. Oh boy. Whose idea was this? What type of idiot paints on a treadmill? Okay, she has a white shirt. I did a little bit of bleed over, but not the worst. Now I can go back to silver and get her knee armor. See, that's the thing too, you notice with some of these models. She doesn't have chest armor. She's not wearing a helmet. She's wearing knee armor. Now maybe it's because she's a mechanic and she spends times on her knees like working on things, but you know, there's a lot of models, and I'm not saying like the woman thing that she's on her knees. I'm saying more so you'll see these with some like these other solos where it's like they just don't want to do knees, so they do knee armor, and they just won't have armor anywhere else except for their knees. They're just really hoping that they take that one shot in the battle in the knee. I'm like, thank goodness I put on my knee pad. All right, let's do these critical knee armor. I seem to remember she actually has like an okay armor stat as well. Oh wait, no, I think it was defense 14, armor 13, so pretty meh. Is the armor just on one knee? Is that what I'm seeing here? Wow, I really should have put like a lamp over here. Then I could see, and you could also see the sweat going down my face. It's hard to see, but we're gonna give you knee armor anyway. Oh my god, that got everywhere. Oh boy. What else? I had some tools on here I wanted to do. Is that a sword? Like, or a dagger? Let's paint it. Let's paint it. We'll tell everyone it was a sword. And these like bullet type part things. I don't think I have any paint on my brush anymore. How am I doing? I got basically 10 minutes left, which matches up because we're, like I said, pretty much there. I got this metal stuff here, some cleanup if I even want to go that far. Oh wait, she had goggles as well on her head. Oh, that's great. I totally want to be doing silver right now above her face. Ah! Okay, that's only semi-horrible. I'll take that. It wasn't so bad. Maybe that's what I needed for this one. Talking about shame. Maybe I need like a shame cam. Like showed you what I was seeing so you can see how bad this is. So, I mean, overall, you know, especially if you see it from far out, you're like, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. That's a painted model, right? Especially if I had a basing on there. That's okay. It's only if you are, it's not going to focus. But all things considered, that's not so bad. Now she has like a fur fluff. And I didn't really bring, I can use a dark brown for that. Usually I make those fur fluffs gray, again, so that it's not too much brown. You know, if it's brown on brown on brown, it all bleeds over. I only keep 2 shades of brown on hand, but I'm not using that much dark brown. So I can use that for this fur that she has on one shoulder. Yeah. There we go. We got this. And then there's some here in the front. Look at that. Easy. Easy. I should paint all my models on the treadmill. All right, I want to fix that black boot where I got silver everywhere. I believe I also have some mucked up hair. But I think I'm like, oh no, we're down in color. It's closed though, that's the main thing. I haven't fallen yet. You know, I swore that doing this and getting distracted and losing my breath, I was going to stumble and fall like 3 times. None so far. So doing pretty good for that. All right, black boot. You're black again. Yeah, I can see now I got that all over the face. So let's fix up your face a little bit. And then dare I try and do like eyes. I didn't bring my blue, but I could always just do it with something else. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Steady. Where's the, I can't even tell. Where's the goggles and where's the face? Between the bad light and the sweat in my eyes. Hi-ya. I think that was okay. I think that was okay. All right. Now for that hard part. I think I've done everything I need to. You know, obviously if this was a regular model, I'd be doing more detail work, buckles, things like that. Of course, I can always do a wash over this. You know, you really want the wash to bring up how well I did here. But yeah, you know, again, given that this is me painting on the treadmill, and there's not actually a lot to show in the back. The back's not really have a lot of details. That was like cloak and done, but that's really not so bad, all things considered. So, oh boy. You know what? I think we have to end that way. We have to try getting the eyes. So how are we going to do that? I don't have the blue. I could just try dotting with white. I didn't really bring a fine brush either, just that one. Oh, this is me hoping for something good on something that's designed to be bad. Oh boy. Let's try and get this to be as tight as a tip as possible. And by the way, if you ever want to try and do that, the trick is to get paint as high up as possible in the brush so that it holds the bristles together. Look at me giving painting advice. All right, we're going in. Dotting the eyes before it dries on the brush. Right eye go. Oh God. Left eye go. Okay, so it's horrible, as you might have assumed. I don't know if you can even tell, but I basically just went blah, blah, white, white. I tried so hard to be careful. But here's a good thing, folks. The good thing is, whenever you paint, you can paint over mistakes. So we'll go back to the flesh colored, and we'll just paint over. Hope that paint's not open. That would suck. We're almost done anyway. But okay, if I can get the white off of her cheeks and nose, that'll be actually fairly impressive. All right, let's do this, Colby. That also helps too, of course. If you go and make it seem like, oh, now I just painted over the eyes. So that means that my end result of what I did was that she basically has like white eyebrows. Okay, so that's a fail, and it looks better if I was just to paint over that. I've also now got flesh paint on her coat, so we literally went a step backwards there. We just made it significantly worse by trying to do the eyes. But hey, I still had 5 minutes. Might as well fill it with failure. That's what we do here. Oh, but Another thing that I think is really great to see is that not everybody is playing, of course, not even on War Room, but those that are really taking advantage. I mean, in a good way, where they're trying out new things. That's the one thing that I'm not doing well in War Room, is that I'm using it to practice regular stuff. Oh God, this is hard. But other people, you know, when they're doing these War Room tournaments, oh, and I got on the face again, come on! They're going in there and they're trying new things. And so by doing that, they're going to come out of this better players than me. Whoa, whoa, falling off the back. All right, I got green on the face. This is going to be a cycle. The last 5 minutes is me trying to make the face as least bad as it was 10 minutes ago. If I can go back in time and just say, hey, Brian, just sit there and don't have an asthma attack for 10 minutes, and you win, bud. There's eventually going to be also so much paint on this face that you won't be able to see any of the detail anyway. All right, I think I'm done trying. It's back to the point where it's passable. There's no eyes, but I don't think we're going to get there. I'm also running out of time, so I have to do just smaller things now, like in the chamber of the gun. I usually make that black, so it looks like you're looking into a chamber. Plus, that's easy. Famous last words. Come on. Oh, boy. And then, boom, done. And you know what? I think we're going to say boom, done for this entire model. So I'll clean this, put this down, and this is where we got to. So, I mean, overall, not super horrible. Again, if I was to put a base on this, put a wash on it, why not? You saw this across the table, you'd be like, yeah, it's a painted model. If anything, you'd be more pulled to the fact that, like, what the hell is that model? Is that supposed to be like an alternate Dirty Meg? Oh, no. It's way worse than Dirty Meg. Yeah. But I got to paint it. I mean, that's been sitting there for so long, not painted. It's one of those models where I bought it because I buy everything for the faction. Another reason why I had to pare down what I owned, because when you're a collector and you own like 6 factions, it's not good for the wallet. But I never brought myself the painter. I have a lot of other things to paint, of course, but you know, I had to really be honest with this one. It was like, I'm probably never ever gonna use this, but now it's done. You know, went on the treadmill, did a Pantisode, and got it all painted. So here we are, going in the last minute and so of this video. So for all of you that did this along with me, I didn't fall. Maybe I should be doing the last minutes without my hands on the thing. I don't know, just to give myself the highest chance of falling by the end of this video. But yeah, for those who stuck around, thank you. Stuart, for all those questions, thank you. Next time I'll have to make sure, next time, why would I ever want to do this again? But if I was to ever do this again, I should really put out the questions like a week early to give people more time. So as I try and wrap this down, trying to kill this off, I think this is actually not too bad. I was actually thinking, like I said, I was going to fall. I didn't know if I like drop my model and then what, right? If I drop my model, do I just go down and have to try and find it? What if I started wheezing? What if I kept losing my breath? But honestly, this is probably like a better training for my lungs. And I've been actually thinking that probably the whole time I've been doing this, you know, like not the Pantisode, but all these morning exercises, working on my lungs. Obviously not in a spot yet where I could like run track like I used to and then be having an asthma attack after. I got all my trophies here, actually, all my ribbons and stuff like that, where I could do it. I would do it. I would do the 800, the 1500, and I would beat everybody else. And then I would just collapse because I literally couldn't breathe. And I had to like lean on my parents as they hold me up because I was didn't have enough oxygen to actually keep myself up. So this is great. Prove that I can do a little bit more with my lungs, prove that I can paint while on a treadmill, and I didn't fall or anything like that. So we are now at an hour. Thanks for watching, and I really need a shower and to take a breather. So thanks for watching. Bye.